Alright guys, on this episode of Build Not Bought, I'm going to take you through how I put together my very own custom Airbox and twin snorkel intake system.
Sam from Build Not Bought.
Okay guys, so in this episode we're finally going to be looking at the intake system on the Patrol. This has been a long time coming, so about probably 5 or 6 months ago we ran some tests on the dyno, and basically if I took the lid off my Airbox I was getting like another 80 horsepower, which was evidence enough that it's not getting enough air. So we got the second snorkel installed. That was in an episode a while ago, and then I had to shoot off over East for all the shows. So I'm back in town now, I can finally get on to sorting this out. So I've got a whole bunch of stainless bends here. I'm just using 304 grade stainless steel, which is what was already on that intake. A couple of the bends are actually 316 because they weren't available at the time. I've got a big run of 316 straight pipe as well. So with all the different bends and the straight tube, I'm basically going to mock it up in the engine bay, the two snorkels into an Airbox and then into the intake. And I can put it all together with tape, mark it, and then take the whole thing out and TIG it together. So we'll be heading around to Josh's later with the TIG and be welding the whole thing up. But the first mission is to get it plumbed up in the engine bay. So I was going to do two snorkels into two separate Airboxes, but I've gone to one for a couple of reasons. One, I've got heaps of space over there and none over here for it to go in. And two, with chatting to Harriet, we're looking at putting a MAF sensor back into it, which will help sort of the drivability and idling and cold starting, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you've got two separate intakes, you've got issues with different amounts of air coming from each side and you've got to split that sensor. So we're gonna run it through one intake. A couple of days ago, I spent some time taking the guards off and cutting holes through each corner. So now there's a bit of tube coming through each side at the back of the engine bay. So it's just a case of marking out and connecting up all the stainless across to this side, and there'll be two intakes at the top of the Airbox, and then it will run through to the one at the bottom going straight into the engine. So that's the plan today. Right now I'm just going to get it all mocked up, do a bit of cutting, tape it together so it's looking pretty close, and then we'll head around to Josh's and TIG it up. Okay, so we've pretty much got as far as I can with mocking up all those bends. What I'm going to do to save trouble down the road, I'm going to go around to a mate's place who's got one of those drop guillotine bandsaws. Now that'll get me the most squarest, flushest cut, rather than using a cutting wheel to do all the bends. Because when you butt them up, it leaves gaps and it's an absolute mess. But, so what we're going to do is move on to the Airbox. Now, I've got some trusty material here. Now, whenever you're doing something like this that involves metal, whether it's bending, welding, cutting, boxing things out, you always want to start with a material that's easy to work with. So I'm going to use some cardboard to cut out a template of where the Airbox is going to go. I can actually use bits of tube here to punch holes through, scour around it, cut the hole out, put this through, and kind of pretty much recreate the whole Airbox external casing, get that in there, and then it's just a case of pulling that all apart and getting the bits of stainless steel cut out to match that template. And then it's just a matter of folding that up, TIGging it together and doing all the internal baffles and stuff. So we'll get started with mocking that up. That'll get us an idea of the shape it's going to be and where things are going to end up. And then we'll be looking in a much better shape for doing it for real in stainless steel. All right, so I've spent the last few days cutting up all of this stainless, so I've pretty much got all these bends trimmed. I've been cutting, shaving, shaping, getting this all to sit pretty good in the engine bay, and also made that cardboard air box, which is now turned into some stainless. So this all got laser cut just at a local shop, so that'll be ready. We're pretty much ready now for the welding, hence why I'm wearing the helmet. But I'm going to go to the whiz of welding. I'm going to go around to Churchy's place and we're going to show you guys pretty much a bit of a insight into what TIG welding is, give you some examples and why I should use TIG welding over MIG welding, and then get all this stainless welded up, intake sorted, and we should be looking sweet. Because I'm going forward driving tomorrow, so actually Sunday. so I gotta get out of here. Oh, Joshua. Joshua, where are you? What's up?
I'm just walking away from you. Sorry, mate.
Nice
Hey.
shirt. All right, so I've come here with Churchy now. I promised the folks a little bit of a education around TIG welding.
All right.
Try to mark it where I can.
Yeah, I saw what you were doing with the tape on the joints. That'll work really well.
So I kind of got it in there with tape. I was like, it looks all right, but I guess it's just tweaking it.
At least we got your car here. We can
that's it.
put it in.
Do a bit at a time.
Yeah, like with everything.
Yeah.
You start welding, it's going to move. So
that's it.
Yeah, at least we can trial and error it here.
Easy.
So, beautiful. All right. So today we're in my shed, and Sam's got me to build up his Airbox. So he's been fabbing it up out of cardboard for the last couple of days, trying to figure out what's going to fit in the engine bay. And so here we are. We're finally tigging it up, and we thought we'd do a bit of a rundown on why we're going TIG versus what we could have done, which would have been MIG. Basically, MIG, super quick, makes fairly nice welds, but when it comes to stainless, it doesn't give you the look we were after, which is a bit more showy. So although we could have gotten some mild steel, we could have just made an Airbox quite quickly. We thought, you know what, spend a bit of time, do it with the TIG, get some nice pretty colors going, a bit more shiny and flash. So when you're doing stainless steel, it's a very heat sensitive material. So when you're doing thin stuff especially, you want to be able to control that heat at all times. You want to make sure that the heat that's going into the job is where you want it to be. And if you're shooting MIG all the time, you know, you can start losing track and losing control of where the heat's going, and you end up with a really ugly looking weld. So a little bit of practice and the right settings, which we can go through. As for what I've done with this, goes a long way. So, all right. So first things first. I know there's going to be a bunch of proper fabricators out there. I don't mean to stomp on your toes. This is just me, backyard, doing what I do and enjoying it. So look, this is what I would do if I'm walking up to this job. It looks a little bit daunting when you come up to a TIG because there are a lot of knobs that you can be turning. But essentially on this one, it's fairly simple. So you've got gas pre-flow, which is if you are striking an arc in a windy environment, there's going to be air around there's going to be contaminants and air around the joint. That pre-flow helps to just flush that out and flood it with argon so that it's nicely shielded. Then you've got a post-flow, which is down here, which is again, click that and then you can set that to whatever, and it relates to seconds. So I set that to 2 seconds. That gives me 2 seconds of post-flow, pre-flow, whatever I want. So you've got your peak current, which again is your, in layman's speak, is amps. Then you've got what's called pulse. So when it's on pulse, you've essentially got what's called a sine wave. So the peak of the sine wave is your max current. The base of your sine wave would be your base current. So you can adjust how hot you want that weld and how cold you want it to be, essentially. Then you can go as far as pulse width and pulse frequency to actually change how many pulses per second. You can go from 1 pulse per second all the way up to 1,000 pulses per second, and it changes the structure of the weld slightly. That's more to do with once you've actually got the practice and you're comfortable with knowing what it's going to do, but it's definitely fun to play with once you get used to it. So we've been doing stainless steel. When we're doing stainless steel or mild steel, ferrous metals, we'd be doing DC welding, which is direct current. Then you've got AC, which is simple switch. AC is what we would use for aluminium. So aluminium being nice and light, fairly structural, but very hard to weld properly. AC comes in really handy because what happens is as the electrons go into the material, the AC, it comes back, and as it comes back through that oxide layer, it actually helps to break up and clean the weld area. So that's very important if you're going to be doing aluminium welding, which we did on Sam's canopy. You had to have AC to do that. Another thing that I've got is, and what anyone with a TIG welder has, is packets and packets and packets of filler rod. However, not all filler rod is the same, and the differences in filler rod vary completely with the different materials. If I was going with a 304 stainless, I might pick a 308 filler rod, purely because there's extra chromiums and other bits that make up that stainless. By going the step up, you're not burning what little there was to begin with away. Therefore your weld's not going to rust and corrode like if you were to use a lower grade stainless. So picking the filler rod for the application is very important. As for the settings for our material, it's all thickness dependent, it's all material dependent. Rule of thumb is 30 amps per millimeter. So we've got 2 millimeters of stainless thickness. So we started off at 60 amps, and yes, it worked and it worked well, but you started losing track of that heat and it started getting a little bit hot. So backed it off down to about 48 to 52 amps, and then it started bringing out the colors and it started making a nicer looking weld.
Oh, it's warm.
It is warm.
All right, so I've just tacked up the box because I'm not too sure about the clearance on this. I did make it in cardboard, remember?
All right.
To just see.
Well,
so it goes
not too
back
bad.
to that bolt where the suspension is, you see there?
yep. How far do you want it to sit on the bolt?
No, not on it, just in front of it. So it just drops there like that.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess as square as we can get. But that should work, yeah?
Not bad for a bit of cardboard.
It's gonna be big.
That's what you want, man.
That's what they say, you can't have a too big airbox.
No, that's it.
All right,
I'd say it's going to be all right.
commit to it. And I actually just got back from getting some perspex as well. So this is going to be the top of the airbox. So once this little rib's installed, all I do is drill in a bunch of little nut certs and then drill through this section. I only got to get a little bit of rubber from Clark Rubber to seal it, and that'll basically be our lid for the airbox. So if anyone knows Churchy, you know one thing, he's obsessed with his lawn. His Instagram actually says, a weird blend between fabrication and lawn porn. Let's see what he's up to. Oh, look at that lawn. It's a very, very precise process and method to doing this, I tell ya. Look at him go.
Alright, so in this scenario, this is now the crossover pipe to go from the secondary Snorkel across to the new airbox. So in this scenario, we're not really after any strength, we're just after, you know, good looks. It's not under any pressure, so we're just going to pulse this whole crossover. Does two things. It's got not much in the way of penetration, so you won't get what's called sugaring coming through the back side of the pipe, so it's not good for flow. So by pulsing it, you avoid a lot of that. So it gives a nice uniform looking weld, and that's about it. Just looks good. All right, so one of the other things that I want to mention is when you're doing welding on a sensitive material like stainless steel, it's really important you either add some sort of backing to the back side of the weld to stop contamination, but also as a heat sink. So when you're welding along, the heat will be absorbed by this, what I use is just an aluminium bar. That's going to suck out a lot of that heat. That way your heat doesn't transmit into the job ahead of the weld and damage the weld.
Alrighty, end of day 2. It's been many cans of Coke later and a few hot hours in the shed, but we've pretty much come to the last little bit. So we're just mounting up at the moment, and there's a little bit more stainless to do, but bit of a summary, bit of a recap. So Airbox, we've had this concept for a while. We've gone for a bigger one now. People might think it's quite massive, and it is. Bigger is better, right?
Biggest airbox you can fit in a GU.
But I do want to I plan on going to a 5-inch outlet on this, and then that means I can run a bigger throttle body on the Patrol, get more air in. So we've got the 2 4s,
snorkels properly.
2 4s coming in, and then a 5 going out. But we're just going the 4 for now because I'm not around to that yet. But just to summarise and recap this whole thing, I first obviously made it out of cardboard, and now I've used 316 stainless, some 2 inch, imagine that.
Yeah.
Some 2 mil stainless, and what I've done, I've actually gone down to a laser cutting shop, and I think that really helps you when it comes to welding to just spend that little extra money and get things laser cut so it's properly square, because it makes the welding a whole lot easier.
Well, at the end of the day, when it comes to your stainless, you want the closest fit up possible. That's going to give you the best outcome for the weld, for the strength, and for the look of the weld. Hence why I've got this in my hand. So this is just a little bit of offcut of aluminium angle extrusion. I just picked it up from ye olde green shed. This is your best friend when it comes to doing outside corner joints. So what happens when you're welding up these corners, if you don't protect the backside of it, firstly you're going to get warping issues, but you're also going to get the sugaring on the backside. So this clamped on the inside of the corner like so, actually protects the backside of it. So it allows your argon to actually penetrate through the weld and be captured there to protect the backside of it. So not only does it stop your warping and it helps you to align it, it actually gives you a nicer looking weld on the inside. So little trick.
There's a little example of shrinking on the inside of this outlet here, which obviously you can't put a piece of aluminium in there, but without purging the inside with argon, that's the way around it, I guess. But other than that, it's come up pretty good. Like we've got this little rib inside, put nutsets in, so that's how I've done the join. Literally gone to Clark rubber.
The lid.
Yeah, put the lid in there. That also got cut properly, so a bit of perspex. Had to shave a little bit off to get it in there, but it's come up pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
So we'll get it installed. Couple of bolts basically to locate it and put it onto the body. This time, I haven't gone body and chassis. That's what I did my battery box. So it's body only. So it's not going to vibrate and cause stress fractures, but we'll get it all piped up and get a big air filter in there. I'm going to go a big 9-inch pod filter. And obviously having the perspex lid, you can see whether there's any water in there or any dust, and when it needs to be cleaned, we'll obviously put the outlet here for draining water. If it does get in there, we'll have a little valve on the bottom.
Breather on the backside.
Yeah, so Harrop's breather kit actually goes into the airbox itself. It doesn't just sit there. So I've put that in as well, and I'm pretty happy with it actually. So what's the last step to clean it up? Bit of Scotch-Brite.
Bit of Scotch-Brite and bit of elbow work, really.
Yeah. Get it looking sweet.
Cool beans.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe. Church on Instagram as well. I'm no doubt, I reckon within the year, he's going to start doing a lot of this stuff for you guys. I reckon he's getting a few tools and bits of equipment in here. So, Church's Fab Shop, coming in the next couple of years, I reckon.
See how we go,
Stay tuned, guys. Subscribe, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Please click the button to your left if you want to go and check out the latest merchandise we have on our website. If you missed last week's episode, click down below to see it. And most importantly, on the far left, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.